you're talking about knowing yourself. So the first point around that is, how important do you think it is to really have a clear view on your values when you look at knowing yourself?
It's absolutely important. And in a part of my mentoring, the first session, we do values, and you'd be, well, maybe surprised, maybe not surprised on how many people, haven't spent the time working on themselves and haven't spent the time really understanding those values. Because as I said, when we know our values, we make decisions in line with our values. Should I take that promotion? Is that relationship good for me? Should I take that risk or not? There's a whole lot of questions that you can answer with much more clarity when you know those values.
Yeah, fantastic. And you spoke about great leaders you've come into contact with over your journey. Can you share any great leaders? It doesn't need to be business leaders. It could be, for example, I don't know, Charlie Watts, the drummer from the Rolling Stones, who passed away. He was the heartbeat of the band, leading the band, but he didn't have the ego of Mick and Keith. Can you share anything, Colleen?
Yeah, sure. That's a great one. I would say, and I, again, write about this in my book, and, there was this amazing woman, her name was Vivian, and it was right in the early days of my career. And she, after I'd finished my summer work session at the age of 16, she came down and offered me a full-time job. And I was petrified because she rang me and said she was coming to talk to me. And I thought, what have I done wrong? And I'm a people pleaser, so that was my worst nightmare. And she actually came down to offer me the job of my first store. Offer me the full-time job.
Okay.
And when she said that to me, my first reaction was, oh, can I do it? I don't know. Am I good enough? And the word she said to me was, I believe in you. And, that's something that stuck with me for my whole life, and the words I say to people around me today, because those few words actually made me believe in myself. So from someone who I think is a fabulous leader, she was someone who had a huge impact on my leadership journey.
Yeah, I think that's a really valuable point, because I often say is you can't expect other people to believe in you unless you believe in yourself. But then building up, I know we're going to talk about confidence later, but it's actually building up that self-confidence to believe in yourself. And, we all make mistakes all of the time, but learning from them and moving forwards, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Can you talk a bit more detail around the 6 leadership principles that you go through in your book, please?
Yeah, sure. I could have just done a whole book on leadership principles because there are so many, right? I only picked 6, and there's some other ones that float throughout my book, but there are so many. You could, being a great listener, being someone who encourages relationships, being someone who cultivates, honest, open communication. But I wrote about 6 in my book, and 2 of them we've already talked about, which was know yourself and values, 2 incredibly important principles of being a great leader. Yep. The third one is to have a clear vision. And, I talk about a clear vision being essential for focusing every single person in your organization on what's really important. And, when leaders clearly and passionately communicate their vision, it really motivates people to act with passion and purpose. And it points everyone in the same direction and allows everyone to work towards the same goals. And having this vision, or having a vision, is about seeing that bigger picture. It's about going beyond what's possible today and looking forward to what is possible in the future. And David, I always say, although a vision's so important, I believe that people follow the leader first and a vision second. And so I always say to all of the leaders that I work with and leaders I'm coaching, is that, people follow you. And if they're not committed to you as a leader, then it actually doesn't matter how good your vision is. It doesn't matter how well you communicate it. It doesn't matter how dynamic you are. Yep. They are not going to follow you. So I really believe that, people choose to follow leaders. And when they do this, they'll follow you into the darkness. They'll climb over obstacles. They'll go that extra mile. They'll give you their blood, sweat, and tears. And, I always say sometimes they'll even try things that are impossible because they believe in you. So really, really important. And, a vision doesn't just apply to our leadership life. And as I said, in my book, everything I talk about is about business and in life. You can apply them to both. And so I say to all of the people I work with and on my Mentor Me programs that, this vision should apply to your everyday life. And, that vision is that picture of what you want to create for yourself and your future. Whether that be for you or your relationship or your family or team or health or that career. So a vision is super, super important. So that's one of them.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm interested to know how you think leadership's changed during the pandemic. And it's actually, you talking about, business life, and it's kind of all blurring into one, right? Because have we been working from home or living at work for the last 18 months? It's all become much more intertwined. So I'm interested to know how you think around, if you were a CEO of Sportsgirl still today, how your leadership style might have adapted in the last 18 months.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And, there have been a lot of leaders that have really struggled through this time. And I've got a lot of phone calls from those people as well. But, I think, David, to answer the first part is, I think the leaders that had really a clear vision, great solid foundations, put people at the heart of everything that they did, are the ones that will continue to survive and thrive during this pandemic, because they have this real human connection. And I think the ones that weren't as connected and didn't put people at the heart and didn't focus on the health and well-being of their people are the ones that are really struggling and going to continue to struggle during this time. So I think for me, as a CEO, my whole focus would be to keep people connected. I always say people come to work, and in my work came to work and wanted to feel part of something bigger than just the seat they sit in, or bigger than just the role that they do. So for me, people are absolutely at the center of every organization. And as I said, they can have the biggest impact on your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that connection of, overall company, business, life mission to what you're doing on a daily basis. I mean, I've been in Australia 16 years. And when I first came, I did a startup for Andrew Banks. And he was always very good at making the link around what you're doing here, and this is how it fits into where we want to go as a group.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And, we'll talk about leadership as a lifestyle, and it absolutely does. We don't put work into one box and life into another. They have to coexist. And when they coexist in a really nice way, that's where the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, it's that authenticity, I guess.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. We've got quite a lot of questions coming through. So what we're going to do is, obviously, while we're still going through leadership, we're going to talk about some of the leadership questions, and then we're going to go on to some other aspects as well. So Joe's got a really interesting question. I'm interested to know your answer on this. I've found that I've learned as much from bad managers and leaders what not to do as I have from good ones. Have you had this experience?
Absolutely. And Jay, you're 100% right. And I say fabulous. We have to have those leaders that we don't admire, and some of the leaders we don't want to follow, because that actually builds on who we are. And as I said at the start, I became a leader by observation. So I took all of the things I loved about leaders, and then I left behind the things I didn't like and started to create that leader by design. So I would say to Jay, keep doing that. Take all the things from the great leaders and put them into your leader by design, and leave the things behind, and don't do some of those behaviors. We've all seen good and bad behavior through our leadership journeys, that's for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. And Noelle's wondering, what's your view, and I think this is a really interesting point, what's your view around deliberate disruptive leadership style? Is there a place for this leadership style, and how can it be delivered successfully?
Absolutely. I mean, disruptive leadership is great. Because, I always talk about a balance. 80% of my life has to be in balance, and the other 20% has to be chaos, because that chaos brings resilience and innovation and new ideas and new thinking, just like disruptive leadership does. As long as there's the balance between the two, I think that disruptive leadership is very exciting for organizations.
And do you think organizations need to understand what point they're at in the cycle? For example, I mean, I guess Sol Trio 15, 16 years ago, when he was a very abrasive, confrontational CEO at Telstra, David Thodey, I think, took over afterwards, more conciliatory, better government relations. But I guess you could argue that at the time they needed that, a bit more of the Sol approach to get the business to where it was. So do you think organizations need to sort of adapt the type of CEO and leadership they have, depending on the circumstances?
Yes, definitely. I think there is. I think that is definitely true. But I also think there's a very big difference between disruptive and destructive. There's a very big line between the two. And so I think you can still be disruptive, but destructive is not a way to run an organization. And even with your decision making, we as leaders have to make tough decisions. There's no question about that. And I always, we're going to talk about kindness today. You can still make those decisions and have those difficult conversations with kindness. And so again, even in the disruptive world we live in, as long as we put people at the heart of what we're doing, again, I think that's where the magic for organizations can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that was an extreme example. In fact, it definitely is an extreme example. And that is gold, disruptive versus destructive. And again, what you said, people at the heart. So are people, in your opinion, definitely the most important thing for organization success?
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely do believe that they are. And, I talk about, all of the things that we do in a business, strategy and innovation and driving sales and marketing campaigns are all done by people. All of those things are done by people. So, if we put our energy and efforts into people, and I talk about, profit versus people or people versus profit, and I talk about people with passion and purpose equals profit. So if we put our energy into the first part of those three words, the last word happens. And I'm very much a believer of that.
Yeah, I always believe businesses are really like living beings. They need to be fed, nurtured, watered, just like humans do, really, or any living organism, to sort of keep them moving forward, keep developing the culture.
100%. So true.
Yeah. Leo wonders if you can clarify the relationship between the right business structure and leadership.
Sorry, the right business structure?
Between the right business structure and leadership. So I think maybe where we're going with this is, the right type of leadership for your, I guess, the way you structure your business given the circumstances.
Yeah, again, I think that, as I said, there's so many different elements to great leadership. And I'm not sure about the structure question, but, I talk about, as I said, leadership is about believing in others. It's about leading with courage. Great leaders lead with courage. Courage is the Latin word for core. It means strength of heart. And, great leaders have a big heart. And I really think that is, in fact, I think courage is one of the X factors for great leaders. And, there are so many elements. Giving to others is about great leadership, and building your own leadership. And, we often think about giving to others as gift giving. How much are we paying someone? Are we giving them tangible gifts? And I think about giving to others in the context of, in leadership, as giving beyond price tags, giving people opportunities, giving people the benefit of the doubt, giving praise, giving people permission to take risks and make mistakes. As leaders, we are in service to others. And so, I'm not sure whether that answers the question, but there are so many elements to great leadership, but all roads lead to people. Every single road leads to people.